Hi there, Cosmic Family. My name is Elial. I am here today to talk about the energies of the next week from February 9th to February 15th. So we are in this energetical rise towards the next eclipse. This means a lot of movement in all levels, both internal and external. And we have a big event this week, which is the change of sign of Saturn. Saturn moves out from Pisces and enters Aries. We are going to feel this a lot. Other aspect that is active during the whole week is, and that is an essential part of the next solar eclipse in Aquarius, is the last square between the Sun in Aquarius and Uranus in Taurus. So these could be days where we have to learn to find our own center beyond the external chaos and the acceleration. I mean, people could be a little bit reactive or dysregulated because the collective tendency to manage these energies is not with much awareness. So we are in that process. It is also important to have in account that contacts with Uranus in Taurus are very related with climatic changes, movements of the earth, economical topics. And on the individual, well, it is in all of those areas that we are associating that with stability. But if that stability is not stable anymore, it is because those are callings to change or to cuts. So we can, that many times we can experiment them, in a very sudden way, but so we can align ourselves with other forms of growth. So I'm going to go in order describing the transits. On February 10th, Venus enters Pisces, moves out from Aquarius. It goes behind Mercury, and well, Mercury hasn't much affinity with Pisces, but Venus does in here. It is said so, because the desire, which is what Venus represents, now could be connected to this higher desires of the soul. It is a position of Venus that, for example, related to relationships, it is redundant. Here desires connections where we can share in a spiritual level, and I am not referring here to a specific practice that you can associate it with spirituality. I am referring to connect with people with which we feel that our souls are choosing each other to grow, that we can feel that we can recharge mutually in this energetical plane, that we are feeling the reciprocity. Let's remember that this is not limited only to relationships. Romantic relationships could be any kind. So this recognition of the other, it is something that is totally united to the inner development. I mean, the relationship that we are creating with ourselves. And as we know, this is an infinite process for each one of us, but it is vital to access to our transcendental function in the plane of matter, but also because not doing that could manifest precisely the shadows of Venus in Pisces, like understanding love as a renouncement to oneself and to our values, wanting to be saved of our own reality, whether this is internal or external, by other people, or attracting people that believe that they need to be saved, or they are not taking responsibility, or they are falling into victimization, creating dynamics of codependency. Could be also desires that are distorted in illusions disconnected from reality, or idealizations of other people that are not corresponding with their behaviors. As a way of escaping from the pain that produces to enter in contact with what is. When accepting what is and choosing consciously from that space is the most loving act that we could do with ourselves and with other people. Okay, we will talk about that later. On February 11th, the Sun in Aquarius perfects the sextile with Chiron in Aries. This is something that both Mercury and Venus did the last week. Is an opportunity to exercise this healthy detachment of whatever thing that could be conditioning us right now, and taking initiatives that could represent healing, like facing an insecurity, a fear, managing in an evolutionary way our capacity to respond in the face of situations that could activate these wounds. Could also be a transit of higher understanding of how events in our life associated to a same experience that causes pain or a wound are connected, and this could help us to reveal, to transcend those experiences, but also reveal the gift that we have acquired through those circumstances that can actually contribute with other people. Okay, on February 12th, we have something very important, which is Mercury in Pisces making its last contact with the North Node in Pisces, and therefore opposition with the South Node in Virgo. This is an activation very important because we are in the eclipse season, and these events are always given close in mathematical degrees to the nodes. So remember that you could feel this days before or days after. Mercury rules our mental processes, and connecting with the North Node and doing this opposition with the South Node in Virgo indicates that there could be a conversation, something that we need to communicate or to decide, that is totally evolutionary, but implies to move out from something that for us is pretty familiar. Could be a habit, a behavior, or a situation that is part of our daily lives, which is South Node in Virgo. And if right now there is nothing that you have to decide or saying, perhaps it is a scene that is presenting, that is showing us which is the pattern that we need to let go of to move forward. And also, this is going to be related with the cleansing that we are going to experiment in the lunar eclipse in Virgo on March 3rd. So it is important to pay attention because it is telling with the topic that eclipse is going to show. So what we need to let go could be linked with stopping offering help from a place that is being born from seeking validation or the fear of rejection. Could be linked with making contact with what a situation is actually showing and letting go of the projection or the ideal that we want the situation to be, so we can move forward towards our dreams, but in a way that we are recognizing both the energetical and the reality, the energetical reality and the external one. So this means making contact with what we are feeling in experience. Could be also taking a decision that opens the path, but we don't have too much information on the rational level. Because this is about trusting our intuition, because life and soul is pushing us towards that space. And the mind could try to control by, seeking for empirical results that they are not going to appear, because the integration of the Piscean energy is to listen to our inner voice, being coherent with that, and improve later how reality is going to reflect that. Other expression is the mind focusing in tiny details, in the negative of life, worries, or wanting to waiting for the perfect moment that doesn't exist as an excuse to avoid making that decision. So, you are going to see how this manifests in your experience. Okay, February 13th, Saturn moves out finally from Pisces and enters in Aries. It is going to stay in here until April of 2028, and automatically in its entrance enters in contact with Neptune. This conjunction is totally active. So Saturn is the one that rules our boundaries, the level of authority that we are cultivating in our experience, and the form that we express that in our lives. This means the responsibility that we are assuming for our actions and directions here in Aries, and also how we could respond in the face of circumstances. In occasions, and depending also the aspects that this entrance could create in your own natal charts, we could experiment Saturn as a challenging energy that pushes us to develop maturity with certain severity, that could present obstacles not to close the path, but to impulse us to grow, or that could block experiences, but because they are not responding to that maturity. Aries is a sign of fire that has this tendency to impulsivity, to act first and think later. This is not always something negative. I mean, an example that I gave before many times, it is that if we act quickly in a situation that is required, we could save a life. But what happens, it is that depending on the integration that we have of the archetype of Saturn and the Aryan energy, some people are going to be called to take action in things that are facing them with their own fears, or that generate doubts over the capacities to move forward in those directions. And in other situations, the impulsive tendency could be, crashing into a wall, a painful learning that calls us to self-regulate and to observe with greater awareness from which intentions are we actually acting. because they have consequences. And we all have things to learn about this. The thing is that we have to unite this energy with Neptune in Aries, and remembering that fanatisms, ideological fanatisms, dogmas that are leading us to treat other people as enemies are expressions of the society that do have to change if we really want to function better. This is not like pushing ourselves to be in agreement with something that is not vibrating with our souls. But if you are so much angry till the point that that leads you to act in a way that is not contributing with other person, it is because it is a projection is being done, an unconscious projection. So seeking for the roots allows us to recognize that and to raise the level of consciousness in a way that our steps can be constructive each time that we are walking. On the other side, with Neptune, it is also a key to understand that if there is no answers right now, there are no answers regarding our path, we have to surrender to the mystery. This is Neptune. And moving forward over the tiny certainties that we could connect with. And the last thing that I wanted to repeat of this transit that I mentioned in a video last week is that it is also important to, if you are initiating things for the first time, beginning in areas that you didn't experiment before, to give yourself the license to learn, to make mistakes and initiate it again, because other shadow of Saturn is rigidity, the self-exigency that could prevent us from living life for fear to do something wrong. And in this initiatic phase of Aries, it is part of experimentation to make mistakes so we can extract a light from them. The last comment is that on February 16th, which is the next week, but we are going to feel that transit this one, the sign Aquarius perfects the square with Uranus in Taurus. So everything that is out of control, strange situations, disruptive ones, synchronic encounters, and other signals are showing us the change that we need to make, or the order that we need to allow to fall, so something new can emerge. And stop attaching ourselves to the old forms, recognizing if we are sustaining ourselves in a limitation for fear to give an end to something that we know. Freedom is actually a profound alignment with the authenticity of the soul. Thank you, everyone. See you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.